Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Cool. Thanks a lot. Um, so how many do we have here today? Last week we didn't have many people. I hope you guys, those who are not here, went through the material because though some of the things might seem disjointed, I mean some of the topics might seem disjointed, but we're building onto something. Okay, so if you were not here, for example, if you were not here last week, it would be good for you to go through the video and the notes and then familiarize yourself with what was done previously. Okay. Um, I think we are all matured, so right. So this today we're going to talk about string handling, which is an important concept, not only in SQL, but in data generally. String handling is an important concept in data management. I'm not sure if you have already started doing your cleaning in Power BI, in your Power BI or in your Tableau. Have you started? Have you started data cleansing in Power BI in particular?
No,
No? Yes? No? Yeah, what's it?
data
Somebody give me
cleaning.
an
No.
answer. I can't hear you. Have we started cleaning in Power BI? Do we know what cleaning is?
Yes, I think we have started.
You
Uh,
have.
we've
Okay.
done data transformation. I
Yeah,
believe that's the same thing.
all these transformations that you do, they are all part of cleaning.
Yes, yes, we did
They are all
this.
Okay.
part of cleaning. Yeah. Okay. Right. So, string handling is one of the most important concepts um in data management. So it's something that you need to, it could be that you're doing it in your Power BI, you could do it in your Tableau, you could do it in SQL, but the concept remains the same. And the beauty of it all is, even if you are assuming you have data in the Microsoft server or your database, and you want to transport or you want to export the data into a visualization tool like Power BI or Tableau to work on. You could just as well clean it in your database management tool before you export. That makes your work a lot easier. And you can only do that if you know how to write the proper codes to execute those tasks. Right. So there are a few keywords under string handling that we will go through first. Let me increase this. I'm not sure whether, yeah, let me increase this a bit so that people see a little bit better. String handling. So there are a few keywords we will touch on, and I'll list them up before we start. The first one is the word called substring. Substring. The next one is called len. Now, len for short stands for length. Now, the third thing we have is, okay, let me make this 3. is the word called trim. Now, trim has got two options. We have the left trim, and then we have right trim. Okay. The fourth keyword we would meet under string handling is the word replace. Then there is another one called char index. This is another very important keyword. Char index. We also have reverse. Then we have cast. And finally, we have convert. So these are the eight main keywords we will be talking about under string handling. 8 of them. So let's take the first one, substring. What do you think substring stands for? Forget about the long word. Just look at the name as it is. Substring. What is sub? String. If you know what sub is, you can guess what a substring would be. So who can guess what substring is? Who can guess what substring is? Anybody?
Oh,
Hmm? Anybody? Okay, what is the meaning of the word sub? What is the meaning of the prefix sub? Right, let me use a longer word but which might give some meaning. What's the meaning of the word subsidiary? Subordinate. Come on, give me some reaction.
A part of something.
Part of something. That's all. It's a part of something. That's what I was expecting. So sub simply means a part of something, a part of a string, substring. Right. So, for example, in your data cleaning exercises, where you have certain words in your table or in the database, you might not need or you might want to get rid of parts of some of the data details that you have in the table. You might want to get rid of some. Not everything, but a part of some of the things. So that is where substring comes in. Substring, a subsidiary of the string, a part of the string. That simply is what it means. So let's see how we can implement and execute this. But before we do that, let's just take, let's see, let's just say we do this. And then refresh our memory with what we have here. So let's say we have this, yeah? Let's run this query again just to refresh our memory with what we have in that table. And then from the output, we can choose something. We can choose a column to work on. We can choose an attribute to work on. Right. So from this table, if I'm to select an attribute to work on, the most likely one that I would select would be the employee number column, employee number attribute. And why is that the case? Because that gives us something that is very peculiar. Now you would see that the employee number is made up of alphanumeric characters, with the alphabetic characters in one part and then the numeric ones in the other part. So I can decide to either split or remove or take part of these things away. So let's see, how do we, let me just write this query so that we see how it works. Copy this back. This time we are not selecting all. We said we want the employee number attribute. So instead of everything, we select the employee number, okay? Employee number. And now we only want a part of it. Temi, looking at this, how do you think if we want to split the employee number into parts, how can we split it up?
So, Godwin, if you're having to split the employee number, because it contains alphabets and numbers, so I think that will be the split, letter and then the numbers.
Okay, yeah, that's brilliant. So we can decide to, for example, take off the alphabetic parts and then leave just the numeric part. Or we take off the numeric part and leave just the alphabetic part. We can decide whatever it is that we want to do with this by using the word substring. Substring. And what attributes are we working on? We are working on the employee. We are working on the employee number attributes. So that is the next part of the query that we write. Employee underscore number. Now, the next thing is for us to determine where the character that we want to retain, what is the position of that character in the group of characters. So, for example, in this particular case, you would see that the letter E is in position 1. So we can denote that by this. And given we just want to return only E, we want to return the first character. Is that okay? Let's close this. And let us give it an alias.
Sorry, please, Godwin. Can you
Pardon?
take that again, please?
Which part?
As in, from the substring, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right. So you know how we got this, right? This is what gave us all of this thing here. But what we are saying is that we've chosen an attribute in the table to work on. So we are saying here that the substring is used in generating or getting a part of a string. Substring, subsidiary of the full string. A part of the full string. Now, we have determined that in this attribute, employee number, we can take the E out of the number. So we can split this here into two, the alphabetic part and then the numeric part. Is that okay? Is that okay? Who has the question?
Yes, it's okay.
Okay,
Sorry.
right. So what we have done here is within the substring clause, we choose the attribute we want to work on. We determine which part of the attribute we want to start from. That is this. We want to start from the first. And which part of that attribute we want to return. The second number. So let me take that again. In the substring clause, we determine and take the attribute we want to work on. Within that attribute that we want to work on, we determine and take the part of that attribute, the position of the character within that attribute that we require. The position of the character within the attribute that we require. Okay? Or better still, let me rephrase. The start position of the character within the attribute that we require. So the starting position of the character within the attribute that we require is 1. And how many characters do we want to return? We can return whatever number of characters we desire to return. But in this particular instance, for the sake of simplicity, I just want to return 1 character. So this 1 here determines the position of the character we want to return. And this here determines the number of characters that we want to return. Is that okay? Right, so let's give it an alias. So we call it as alphabetic parts. As alphabetic parts. Let's just call it that and see when we run this query what we shall have. What shall we get when we run this? Do you see what we get? Is it making sense? Right. Let's make progress. So assuming that instead of just wanting to return one character, we wanted to return more than one. We still want to start from one, but we want to return more than one. Let's assume that we want to return the first two. All we do, once we have this, this denotes the number of characters we want to return. All we do is to change this to 2. First 2 characters. Okay. Now let's see what happens when we run this query. We have the first 2. Is that making sense?
Yes.
Now let's see, pardon? Yeah?
Yes, it's making sense.
Cool. Let's see what happens if we increase, whether we will get anything at all. Let's assume we want to return 8. How many? Let's see. How many do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Are there up to 8 characters? Let me just use 8. It doesn't really matter. So instead of just, because this is randomized, let me just make it XYZ. Okay. And we have this. It has returned. So assuming we had more than 8 characters in this attributes section, it would only return the first 8. Okay? It will return the first 8. Now let's also look at something else. Assuming we don't want to start from the first, but we want to start from, let's say, the second. We want to start from the second. Obviously, yeah, we can do that. We can do. Let's see what happens when we run this. From the second, return 1. And that's what we have. And from the second, let's say we want to return 6. So let me change this to what? We're starting from the second, right? So as from the second takes away all the alphabetical parts. So let's just say as numeric parts. Numeric parts. This definitely will not be alphabetic anyway. This will not be alphabetic. Let me make this second character. Second character. Right, so when we run this, let's see what happens when we run this here. To start from the second and return 6 characters in all. That is if there are up to 6 characters in the attribute field, right? It will return 6 characters. But if there aren't up to 6, then it will return whatever that there is. Is that making sense? I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That mainly up to 5, 5, 5. Is there more than? Is there anything more than 6? I doubt if there is more than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Most of it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Most of it is 6. So let's not overflow the issue. Right. So let's go to the next word. Have I deleted my stuff? Let's go to the next word. The next keyword. What is the next one? I think the next one is len, right? Len. The next one is len. So let's look at len. Len. And len, as we said, is what? Length. That is the full. So again, what we can do is select let me just copy. Okay. From employees. But what do we want to select? We need to denote what it is that we want to select. Okay? So we need to denote what we want to select. Again, let's select the employee number. We want to select employee number. But what do we want to do with it? We want to find the length of the employee number. So we use the keyword learn. And like I said, I like to write my keywords in caps. So I'll change it though that doesn't matter at all. It would still work if I use lowercase. Employee number. Right? As len of character. Len char. Length of character. Let's see what is gonna happen. So we want to select the employee number and then they select the length of employee number, okay? So that's what it's going to give us here. So we have employee number and it's also giving us the length of the employee number. Let's see if there is any value that is more than 6. I'm expecting, yeah, at least there's one. There are a few less than 6. Okay, so majority are 6. Okay, that's not a problem. That's not an issue at all. How to use this knowledge is what the problem is. How to use it is what the problem is. How can we use this? Again, whilst all these things, string handling keywords on their own give very little very little importance on their own, sticking separately. They are all of very little importance. But when combined with substring, they become very powerful. So it's knowing how to do that combination. Knowing how to combine them is what is of utmost importance. Now let me change the data table, the database, and then we would see something also. In this particular database, it's pretty simple. It's quite simple to just visualize this and say, oh, there are 6 characters. But assuming we use this database, let's use this database and let's do something here. Select all from dim employee. Let's see what we have in this table. Okay, we have this, right? Is there an attribute that we can use here and create splits of or count the number? Yeah, of course we can do this. We can count this. We can do a count of all of these. But most importantly, I want us to focus on this attributes. Reason being that it has a mix of things. It has a whole this attribute field actually has got a lot of things going on here. It has the initial caps part. It has the backward slash. Then it has the other part of it. So about 3 things are going on here. At least 3, I'm sure. Could be more than 3, I don't know. But we have at least 3 things that we can play with. Right, so let's see what we can do with this. What can we do with this? Right, so let's go back and then use the login ID to execute some of the things we did previously. Login ID. Login ID. Select login ID. Select, right, so we have to take this out. If we just do this just selects the login ID. Just as this query is similar to the one we did here. Where is it? Oh, we did a query here a while ago. Or did we use it? I think we used it. Yeah, I think this. Yeah, we did this employee number from employees, and then we inserted this later. So yeah, we've used it. So that's the similar kind of thing that I wanted us to do here. Right, so here too, we can, for example, do the substring, okay? Substring, login ID, We can start from character 1, return to the first 2 characters. And you would see that when we run this, you would see what it would give us. It gives us that. And we can put an alias there so that it names the table properly. Right? We can put an alias. As first 2 characters. As first 2 characters. Right. So let's make progress with this. Let's now take this thing here we have and use the len keyword. You would see that in this particular case, we have there isn't, unlike the previous one, where we could easily guess the number of characters. It is not easy to make a guess here. And even if you were to guess, there is such a huge variety that you would have to keep guessing and guessing and guessing. Right? So let's see what we can do. But before that, let's just use the len keyword to see what we can have in this. I'm going to comment this out so that it doesn't run. Because I want you to look at, I want you to see something first. So len. Again, we use the len here like we did before. And we want the len to be on the login ID. I've commented this one out, so this is not going to run. This bit here is not going to run when we execute. So this is what we have. One gives us 14, 14, 21, 16, 18, 14, 17, 15, 11, like that. And there are quite a whole some 25, 23, 21, 12, 20. There is quite a good variety here, right? So do you think, thinking about it critically, okay, before I ask the question, let's do something. Do you think that we can find a way we can find a way of writing this len such that it gives us from any point that we start, it can give us the length that we want. We know how to use the substring. Length. Okay, let's run this one here. Let's run this. Let's run this and then let's get rid of that. So what I want us to do here is to say, for example, we want to start from, let's say, the third character. If you look at these login IDs here, you will see that something peculiar starts from the third character. We know what the first two are like they are constant, right? But something peculiar starts from the third character. So let us just imagine that we start from the third character. And we want to return the length of the remaining characters. Is that making sense? We want to start from the third character and return the length of the remaining characters. How do we write that? We know that len login ID gives us the length of the whole. It gives us the length of the whole attribute. It gives us the length of everything. But we have noticed that, except for this here, we have noticed that the first two characters are similar, except for this one. I'm not sure whether there is another one, but you would see that the great majority, yeah, there are a few, but you see that the great majority starts with AW. And then you will see that after AW, there is a backslash for almost all the login IDs. So if we want to determine, apart from the AW, which seems to be common to all the login IDs, apart from that, how many characters have customers been using in generating their IDs, or how many characters are generated within an ID? That is where the len attribute again, the len keyword again comes in here. That gives us a clue as to what to do. So we know that this bit here gives us the length of everything. So let's just copy it and put it here. So we say that we are starting from the third. Starting from the third. Remember here, when we started, we said starting, for example, this one starting from the second. The first number gives us the starting point, starting from the first. So if we have 3, here we are starting from the third. So starting from the third, take the whole length. How do we get the remaining? How many parts are we cutting off? How many characters of the whole are we cutting off? Anybody has an idea? Anybody has an idea on that? I'll call somebody if nobody has an idea. Bingby.
Two characters.
Yeah?
2 characters.
2 characters. So what do you think? If we want to take 2 out of something, what do we do?
Is that -2?
-2. And let's close the bracket. As part of login ID. Let's just call it parts login ID. Parts login ID. And let's see what happens when we run this query. So you would see that that bit here, this line here, has given us that. It has cut off the first two, and returned the rest. Cut off the first two and returned the rest. Any questions so far? Any questions so far? Again, let me just mention this. When you are able to write a query like this is quite a powerful query. Reason being that it doesn't matter how many characters there are in this. It doesn't really matter how many characters. You can produce a part, any part of that the character set that you have. You can produce any part of it. So this is a dynamic query. It's a dynamic query. It can be executed on any attribute field that we want to return in any shape or form, right? So it produces, it's quite a powerful query that we have here. Okay. Let me see if I have something left for this. Right, I have, before we go to the third thing, is this the second or the third? Length, I think, is the second. Okay, before we go to the third, let me just quickly do upper and lower. That's pretty, this one is very easy. So let's assume that we select first name. Let's assume we select first name. Guys, 1 minute. Give me 1 minute, yeah? Let me answer this call. I'll be with you in a minute. Sorry about that, guys. So let's whilst we are doing this, let's just do this once and for all, upper and lower. So we can decide to change our characters all to upper or all to lower. So if, for example, we select first name, from, deem employee, and let's assume we want to change the first name to upper. We want to change the first name to upper. So all we do in that case so it's change everything to uppercase. Imagine the same way if we want to change to lowercase, we just make this lower. So I just thought I should mention that before we go too far into lower and this. Okay. So you can also use this to write your data items as you please. Right, the next thing we would look at is trim. Trim, and like I said, trim is made up of two parts. Trim is made up of two parts. To do this, let me see if I can use a different database. Right, trim. Select. Salesman name. Select salesman name. From. Many locations. Look at this carefully. Look at this carefully. Can anybody notice anything? Can anybody see anything wrong with this output? Can anybody at all notice anything wrong with this output.
Some of the names in the rows have spaces in front of them. It's a mix of
Okay.
custom
Right.
names.
That's cool. That's very good, actually. That's very, 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 very good. I was actually expecting somebody to be able to tell me that, and you really did that. So that's pretty awesome. Yeah. So apart from there being spaces in front, we don't even know there could also be spaces behind. Because obviously we don't see the spaces behind, do we? But there could be spaces behind. Also look carefully. You would see that within the names, we have certain things which may not be very desirable. Look at that. We have the ampersand sign. We have and. And if you look carefully, you have to look hard to see this. Let me see if I can maximize this now. I can't make it any bigger. If I were to increase this, it would only increase it here, not there. So I wish I could make this bigger. But if you look hard enough, you would also see that there are full stops here. There is a full stop here. Let me see if I can see another one. Okay, let me see. Let me do something now. Come on, I'm looking for a way to make this easier for you to see. Okay, it doesn't look like we have much of a choice. Right, but I can tell you that there are also full stops. Even I'm finding it a bit difficult to see the full stops, but I know there's, so I can see one here, and there is another one here, the ampersand after the ampersand sign. So these are things you really don't want to have in your table. The reason being that if you were to write this Owen and Mary Douglas, would you put two names together as this, like this? It really doesn't make sense. You want to have distinct data items in your attribute field. So you need to clean these things. You need to take out the and, you need to close the spaces, you need to take out all the undesirables. That is one of the things that the trim does. But the trim has got its limitations. So when you combine the trim with other things that we will talk about, when you combine the trim with other things, then combine the trim with replace with char index, and then you put you wrap all of that in a substring, you have something fantastic that you can actually work with. So let's see how we can do one of these. Let's just see how we can do one of these. Let's do a left string first and see what happens, okay? Let's do a left string. So let's come in between here. So we want the salesman name. Let's do a left trim on the salesman name and see what we have. Let's just do that and see what we have. Right. So let's see what this would return. Do you spot a difference? So this has cut off all the unwanted paths, unwanted spaces on the left. You see how nicely it has aligned this. It's cut off all the unwanted spaces on the left. Right. In much the same way, we can do a right trim. So if we want to experiment with that, all you do is copy this and then paste it down here and do a right trim. Change this to right. And let this be right. But as you would already have suspected, spaces to the right are difficult to identify. Spaces to the right are really, really difficult to identify. Let me put this together so that they all run together. Put this in here. So whilst we don't see any difference between the left trim and the right trim in this particular instance, it doesn't mean that undesired spaces on the right are still there. So there are no undesirable spaces on the right. Every undesirable space on the right has been removed. But obviously, these names do not fill the whole space. So there will still be spaces here. Okay? Now, how do we get rid of things like, okay, so you can see that when you run the right stream returns, so it just works on this bit and then that comes back up. Okay, so now let's do a third thing. Instead of just left and right, let's do a third. Let's do a third thing, and then we would see how that works. Instead of left and right, let us just do a trim. And again, let's run all three so that we see the difference. This is just trim. So do we notice any difference at all? You would see that the left trim just trims things on the left. Right trim would trim just things on the right. So when you do just the right trim, it doesn't take care of anything on the left, which is why these spaces come back when you do a right trim. But look at it when you do just a trim. It takes care of both the left and the right. So this one here trims unwanted leading items. Leading unwanted items. Characters on the left. This one would trim on the right. And this one just trims unwanted on both the left and right. On both the left and the right. That's what we have for this. Any questions at all? Okay. Let's go to the fourth word. Our fourth word in this is the word replace. I am tempted to say we will just stop on replace. When we do replace, we will stop because char index is quite a big one and might take quite a while to understand and to execute. So we might just stop on replace. So let's do replace, okay? Now, as the name implies, replace simply means what? To put something in place of another. That simply is the meaning of the word, and that is exactly what it does here. So this is used in replacing symbols and other unwanted characters. So anything that is here, for example, after we've done your trim, the trim takes care of both left and right, but it doesn't take care of things within. So the trim cannot remove the and. It can't remove the ampersand. It can't remove the full. Can you see the full stop here? There is a full stop here. There is another one here. It can't remove those things. But replace can go in and take those things out. So that is what we want to see. So let's go back. And let's say, for example, let me see, let's see. Okay, look carefully before we even go to the words and the symbols. Look at the space between Neil and Davis and Steve. Compare that with the space between and Mary, Ampersand and Sylvia. So while these are still spaces, and we say trim takes care of the spaces, it only does that if they are on the ends. It doesn't take care of spaces within, right? So let's remove these spaces as well. And when we remove, okay, before I ask that question, compare the space here. How many character spaces do you think this is? This, that. How many character spaces do you think this is?
That's 2.
So which one is 2?
Between and Mary.
Okay, between and Mary is 2, and the other ones are 1, right? So
Yes.
we want to replace 2 or more character spaces with 1. So that is what we're going to do. But how do we write that? We need to know how to write that. So we want to replace where do we want to replace what we want to replace? It is within the salesman name, right? So within salesman name, wherever that you see, but these need to be put in quotation marks, okay? Wherever you see a double space, so that is 1. Wherever you see a double space, replace it with a single space. Wherever you see a double space, replace it with a single space. That is what this is going to do. Within the salesman name, wherever you see a double space, let's see if this would work. And you have to have a comma between the two things, the items you are replacing, okay? Let's see if it would work. I want a basis for comparison. I want a basis for comparison. How can I keep this and that? Okay, I'll run both at the same time. I'll run both at the same time so we see everything. That's once, okay. Right, so let's see what we have. Look at it carefully. Okay. What has happened here? Mary, and okay, Mary and is sorted out. Can you see that Mary and is sorted out? It's down one space. One space. Where else was there a space? Sylvia and ampersand. Sylvia and ampersand. So was that previously one space? I think this was one space actually. This wasn't a double space. Because the reason why it looks like it's a double space is because there is a full stop here. If you look hard enough, you will see the full stop. There's a full stop there. So the full stop has taken one space and then there is one space in between. So it's not just the Sylvia. The next character to Sylvia is the full stop, not the ampersand. So it looks like two spaces, but it's actually one. All right, so this is what we have here. But then you see that if you just do that, what has happened? We've gone back to this state, right? Where you still have your the spaces at the end. You still have those at the end. Because we are telling it to replace a double space with one space, not a single space. So it has returned these spaces that were there previously. But there is a way around it. There is a simple, very simple way around this. All right, let's also replace something else before we go on. There are other things we can replace, right? There is the ampersand, there is the and. But which would you prefer, the ampersand or the and? So here we are telling the system that everywhere you see ampersand, put and. That's what we are telling it to do. Everywhere you see ampersand, put and. So there was ampersand here. We're asking it to put and. Okay. And also, we can ask the system to remove all these full stops. So wherever there is a full stop, what do we replace it with? Who knows what we'll replace a full stop with? Let's run this and see what would happen. There's a full stop here. Like I said, if you look hard, you would see it. Let's see if it will go away. Yes, it has gone. And you see that the space between Sylvia and the ampersand has suddenly shrunk. Can you see that? Look at the space here. So it was the full stop that was there that made it look like it was a double space. But with that full stop taken out now, the space has shrunk. Okay? But like I said right from the beginning, taking these things separately doesn't provide so much strength to the execution of these words. But combining them can make them very powerful. So you would see that when if we just run any of these without a trim, these issues we had previously at the ends still surface. So we're now going to try to see how we can combine some of these things. Okay? We're going to combine them and see how they would work. Let me remove this first. Okay, let me just comment it out. We might need it. Let me just comment it out. So, if we want to make a combination, let's first of all, we trim. We trim the edges before we go inside. Okay? We trim the edges, then we go inside. So trim. Trim salesman name, for example. Let me go copy what we had done before. What did we trim? What did we trim in salesman name? Okay, we didn't trim anything. We didn't trim, yeah, we did trim. We just used the word and it happened, okay? So, okay, let's trim salesman name again. Salesman name. So with this, we know that the spaces on both ends are taken care of. Is that okay? We know that spaces on both ends are taken care of. So having now written a trim command, We can then bring in a replace. But what are we replacing? We now need to decide what it is that we are replacing. And what are we replacing with what? We first started by removing the double spaces within the names. So let's bring that. We have the double space. We replace with what? A single space. And let's give it an alias. And let's see what is going to happen. I have commented this out, so of course this bit is not going to work. Okay, this bit is, we've taken this bit out. Let me just take it out. Let me take it out. And let's run this. So that gives us, we see straight away, this has taken care of the edges, and it has also taken care of the double space here. Like I said, this appears to be a double space, but it's only because there is a full stop there, so it is not a double space. But you can see from here that this command here has trimmed the edges, which is something that when we just run a replace, we are not able to do. When we run just a replace, we are not able to trim the edges at the same time. If we run just a replace on that same thing, this is what we get. But if we run a replace and trim, the two operations take place at the same time. Again, we can continue building this until we build and remove every unwanted thing that we have. So again, we can replace. We copy this. Just copy this here because you already have it. So just copy it, paste. And what else do you want to replace? So bring in another replace. Replace. Bring in another replace. And now what is it that we want to replace? So there's a comma here. What is it now that we want to replace? Let's assume we want to replace the full stop. What do we want to replace it with? We want to replace the full stop with just empty space. Okay, so let's give it an alias. Let's say it's without full stop. We give it an alias. And let's execute. So there's a full stop here. Take note of that. There is a full stop here. There is another one, I think, here and there. Not here, I think, but there is a full stop here. You would see it when we run this. You would see that this space here would shrink when the full stop goes away. Can you compare the two? Can you see the two? There's a difference, isn't there? The other full stop here isn't that visible, but it is there. I can see it. You may not be able to see it, but I see it. This one has also gone away. So replace the full stop with just a space. In fact, we've actually even removed the space from here. We can keep building. What else is there to remove? We can remove the ampersand. We can remove the ampersand. So let's again build. Let's build again. So let's copy the whole of this. And introduce another replace to replace the other things that we want to replace. A comma here. What is it that we want to replace this time around? Let's replace the ampersand. So again, we put this in quotation marks, ampersand. We replace it with and. The and also is in quotation marks. And we close the brackets. Let's run this and see what happens. We have replaced that. So you can keep building this until you've built to a point where you now have removed every unwanted, every undesirable thing from your data set. Right? Any questions so far? Any questions so far? Let me give this an alias, so it looks a little bit nice. What should we call it? What should we call it? Full clean. Let's just call it full clean. Or full claimed name. Claimed name. And so with this, we have removed every unwanted symbol in the name attribute. And so if you want to work on the data set, this would be what you would eventually be exporting into maybe your Power BI or your Tableau to work on. Okay, any questions so far? No questions? Okay, if there are no questions, let's bring this to a close. Like I said, char index will take quite a long time to complete, so I wouldn't want to go into that at this point. Not that it is a lot, but um, okay, maybe we should do one more thing before we will look at char index next week. We have a few minutes. Let me see what is there. So we've done replace our jumps char index. Let's go to reverse. And that's pretty straight. That's very straightforward. And that would take us just like 5 minutes to do. Reverse. Like the name implies, you use this to reverse the way the characters are arranged. Who can write that query? Given what we have done so far, who can write the reverse query? Who can write the reverse query? Let me do this on AdventureWorks. First of all, let's see what is in AdventureWorks, okay? So let's see, how is it? How are the names? Let's use it on a name. So we can, for example, reverse first name, reverse last name, or reverse both. So let's select first name, for example. Let's just select the first name. First name. Okay, nothing is coming up there. First name. Select first name. From company, from dim employee. And let's say we use the word reverse. That's all. It's just like the first one that we did. Replace, trim. What do we want to reverse? We want to reverse the first name. That's it. We want to reverse the first name. As reverse the name. Who knows why this is underlined? Can anybody tell us why we have an error? Okay, let me go up and then have a look, have a careful look at the way we've written the previous ones. Have a look at this. Have a look at all of these. Look at this. And look at that. What is wrong? It's something simple, but if you do not, something simple that could make you rack your brains for a long time thinking you've done something seriously wrong, but you really haven't done anything wrong. It's just a matter of putting a comma. So after the select statement, you choose the items you want to display. First name is one, and then reverse first name. So between the items you want to display, there should be a comma. That is why this comma is important, okay? Between the items you want to output, there should always be a comma. So this comma here, regardless of the fact that it's on a different line, there should be a comma. This here could have been there and it would have worked all the same, right? So if we do this, you would see that we have first name. You see what has happened to the first name, right? So that is what we have. Okay, so we would end today's lesson here. Any questions? Just listen to the lecture, and then next week we can discuss. So we will continue with strings next week and maybe round it up with something else. All right. So have a very, very good night. If
Good
there are
night. Thank you.